It's incredibly important right now that we are anchored in the reality and the truth of the faithfulness of Jesus. This is wrapping up the mini-series where we have covered how we need to put a stake in the ground to know that God is faithful no matter what. I want to dive into a few pretty radical biblical accounts that the Lord has put on my heart for this series. So the first being the account of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I believe this is a great example of what it looks like to know that God is faithful no matter what. They were so solidified in God's faithfulness that their response to being brutally murdered by being thrown into a very real, very hot fire was, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing fire, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." They were facing crazy suffering, and they knew that God is faithful even if they endured that. Even if they were brutally murdered, even if they were burned to death, no matter what happened to them. The second account I want to share is of Paul and Silas, another great example of what it looks like to know that God is faithful no matter what. They had set a female slave free from a demon. Because of that, they were seized and drugged to the authorities, where they were stripped, beaten with rods, and severely flogged. Then they were thrown in prison, which was more like a tiny, damp, dark cellar, hollowed out cistern in those days, and they fastened their feet with iron in the stocks. Them knowing that God is faithful no matter what is what enabled them. It's the only reason that they could, with what they're going through, pray and sing hymns to their God, even in that incredibly painful and trying situation. And the third and last account is the greatest example of all, Jesus. He was facing the most gruesome execution out of all of them ever. The stripping of his clothes, the brutal beating past the point of recognition, the filleting of his skin, the pulling out of his beard, the crown of thorns being lodged into his head, and the entire brutal suffering of the crucifixion. A prolonged, brutal murder. He knew fully all that he was facing, and he fell with his face to the ground, and he prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." The only way that he could do this in this situation and everything that he was facing was because he knew in an immovable way that his Father was faithful. He entrusted the Father that he sees the full picture. He trusted his Father's character and nature, no matter how much he had to suffer in this temporal earth. No matter how much God's faithfulness looked the opposite of being true in his current situation. That's the only way he could say that. So if you are in a season where your circumstances look the exact opposite of what God has said or what is in his word, or you need help with your faith, the link for my coaching is in the caption below this video. And don't forget to share this with your friends that need the encouragement.